The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station, JVC Broadcasting Management, or its sponsors.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us on another edition of the Mangano Family Foundation Doing Good radio show. This show is really aimed at promoting all of the positive impact that local organizations and community leaders and individuals who are dedicated to making a difference. We like to highlight that on the Mangano Family Foundation Doing Good radio show. So we are here again with Sal Mangano of the Mangano Family Foundation and president of Mangano Family Funeral Home. Sal, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. And our guest is really somebody who has done an amazing job all across Long Island and really helping families in need. And that's Mike VanDenburg, who's the founder of Promise of Hope Foundation. Mike, thanks so much for joining the Mangano Family Foundation show today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to share.
And so in addition, to the foundation, which we're going to get into a lot, you're also head of a contracting company. You want to talk a little about what you guys do there? Yeah,
so my partner and I, for the past almost 30 years, started a commercial flooring company, and we also do commercial construction for schools across Long Island and Westchester. We are located in Copeg. We've been there since day one, and we've just been growing this business for the past 30 years, and thank goodness we've had tremendous success through quality work and a good reputation that it's continued to grow year after year for 30 years.
That's great. It's no easy task to have a business in general, but let alone for 30 years. So congratulations on your success there. And the nonprofit, Promise of Hope Foundation. Talk to us about how that started and kind of how that all came together.
So the Promise of Hope Foundation was started by me and my partner about 9 years ago. Listen, we were successful in business. Things were going very well. And we've always had this thing inside us that we wanted to give back. I almost feel like it was a little bit of Catholic guilt, that you're doing well in life, everything's good in life, and when you see someone suffer, you feel guilty for doing good in life. And so we decided we were going to open a foundation. And when we opened the foundation, we really weren't sure what the foundation was going to do. We just knew we wanted to do good, and we wanted to give back to the community that has given to us, which is really all of Long Island. We do schools from Montauk all the, right to, the Queens-Nassau line. So we opened a foundation, got 501(c)(3) approved, got everything done, and we're like, all right, great, now what are we going to do? And we really didn't know. And I'm a believer of just build it and it will come. Like, you will figure this out. And I said to my partner, we will figure this out. Something is going to pop up, and we will figure out what we're supposed to be doing with this foundation. And about 3 weeks later, I receive a call from my superintendent. At the time, I was living in Miller Place. Mm-hmm. And my superintendent called, and she's like, and I was up in Albany at a state conference, and she's like, Mike, did you hear Mr. McMorris's son was killed in a tragic accident? Now, a lot of you will probably remember the story of the Boy Scouts walking along the road 8 or 9 years ago. A drunk driver left a golf course and mowed down 6 or 7 of these Boy Scouts. And Andrew was pinned under the car and lost his life. And as we're talking, he's like, I was like, wow. I was like, anything we could do for him. He worked in my daughter's school. He was my daughter's guidance counselor, who I have worked closely with my daughter. So I was really like heartbroken over this guy who's been so amazing to me with my child. He just lost his child. And I was like, if there's anything I could do, please let me know. She called me back about an hour later, and she goes, I hear that they're going to basically spend every dime they got to give him a good funeral. And I'm like, well, geez, you work your whole life to save some money, and now you have to spend it all. And I was like, we're going to pay for the funeral. Just call them up and tell them we're paying for the funeral. And we paid for the funeral, and I felt it was important to make sure I paid respects at the wake. And I went to the wake, first time, never been to a child's wake before, was really preparing myself for a very difficult situation. And I went in and I met the McMorrises, and they could not have been more grateful. They could not have been more appreciative. And they said, listen, you were able to help my son have a dignified send-off and a dignified, a dignified send-off in front of his friends, in front of the Boy Scouts, in front of his family, but more importantly to him, what he deserved. And I left the wake. I picked up the phone. I called my partner, and I said, I found our calling. This is what we're supposed to be doing. And one thing led to another, and, we're 9 years into this, and we did well over 100 children's funerals across Long Island.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah, it's been tragic, but we are certainly glad we are there for those families. Really, really, you go to a funeral and you meet these parents who've lost everything. I mean, you ask anyone, what is the worst thing that could possibly happen to you? The answer is the same every single time. It's the loss of a child. It's the loss of a child. And the gratitude from these families is second to none. And my board members, I encourage them to come. It's difficult. It's not easy walking into those. And Sal, you know this better than anyone. You do this for a living. It's not easy walking into a kid's wake or a kid's funeral. And but the gratitude you get from the family is better than any experience I've ever had in my life. Just knowing that we made a difference at their absolute worst moment.
Wow. I mean, that is just, that's amazing. I mean, incredible. And it struck a real chord with you, like in terms of like almost like a calling, so to speak. It sounds like, what it means to you personally.
It absolutely, it's taken my life over. It's really changed the person who I've become. When we started with this foundation and we started doing these funerals, I started watching everything I did. I was like, I have to make sure as a human being, I represent this foundation well, because if I don't, that's a poor reflection of the foundation. Forget about me. I don't care. You can think all you want about me. I didn't want any poor reflection, so I had to change the way I was. Not that I was a bad person, but you really watch what you do and watch what you say and careful, how you do things. But most importantly, the money that comes in, I always make sure it's spent exactly the way it was intended to be spent. There's nothing about that money that I would use. I even feel guilty making up pamphlets to try to promote the foundation, because I feel like, well, that's not what they gave the money for, but we do need it.
Yeah,
we do need to promote this. It's part of the operating expenses, but my guilt allows me to think that way. But as the foundation evolved and, in the 20s, the 2020 came and, COVID hit and the big push against the police department and a big push against the Fund Me. We started another addition to the Promise of Hope Foundation, and that was when Officer Sakos was killed in New York City in 2021. I reached out to people I knew in New York City, found out the department does not pay for those funerals. That funeral falls on to the burden of the family. And I said, well, that's not going to happen anymore. And from that point forward, we pay for every single line of duty funeral in Nassau, Suffolk, and New York City.
Wow, that's amazing.
We pay for every line of duty funeral.
That's amazing.
Wow. You're a successful business person. You had your company years ago. You decided to start this. Love for you to talk a little bit more about, people are busy. Business owners are extremely busy, not just running their businesses, but their lives. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about, just from your perspective, why it's important for, a business owner, local businesses, local companies, to get involved in giving back. Not even just in your organization, just in general, as like the right thing to do in terms of social responsibility and really giving back to the community that serves you.
And I think that's a great question because, as our business grew, we almost felt like we're getting all this success and we're just taking. And we felt like we had to give back too. Like you can't just take and not give back to the world, and I feel that way for everybody. Look, if you've been blessed with success and God only knows that success is on you. Like you worked your butt off. You worked so hard to be successful, but there is, a social responsibility to give back to your community, to help your community, whether it be through Promise of Hope, whether it be through one of a gazillion other great foundations. If you've been so blessed, give back. But the one thing I promise you is if you give back to your community and you see what you have done, it will be the best feeling you'll have ever felt in all of your business. Being there for a family, to me, I feel 1,000 times better than winning a tremendous contract. You know what I'm saying? It's just that feeling is tremendous. And what you do for a family that's less fortunate, or a person, or whatever that is, that's less fortunate, you've changed their life. And that's one big thing, as you grow and you become successful and things become a little easier for you and life becomes a little better for you and you're able to travel more and do more and buy fancier cars and get bigger houses and get a nice boat, that's all great. But there's still a tremendous amount of this population where $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 to that family changes their life. Could change the direction of their life. Yeah. So,
and you made a good point before too. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that $2,000, $3,000, that families struggle to save that type of money, and that is their nest egg that's growing, or an emergency fund that, in one swoop, can be gone. Just like, unfortunately, if they, when they lose the most precious thing to them in the world, which is their child. And for you to be able to come in and provide that level of support really is inspiring and provides huge impact to that family. Huge impact. So thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Well, it's our pleasure, and at this point, we do feel like it's our responsibility now.
How do you talk about a little about the organization in terms of fundraising? If somebody wants to donate to this incredible cause, how do they do it? Talk a little about how you raise the money to provide these services to these families.
So we have a board. A board is a group of 6 to 8 other local contractors who said, hey, Mike, we want to be involved. We want to assist. We don't necessarily always have the time to go out and go to a funeral, go to a wake, do this, but we certainly have the means to kick in. So we have great companies like Parkey's Construction, Seaford Plumbing, Arrow Steel Window, J.C. Broderick Associates, Environmental Consultants, Branch Services, Industrial Coverage Insurance. Companies like these have been so good to us. Last year we had our busiest year ever. And for our foundation, busy is not good. We had 21 children's funerals, 1 line of duty, and 3 other police officers that we assisted in their funeral course who died due to accidental causes, and Emily Rennick being one of them, the police officer that was killed in the nail salon in Deer Park. We covered her funeral expenses. But it was a very busy year. And, December was coming. Our big fundraiser is in March, and we were running out of money. And I had to call our board up and say, guys, I apologize. I don't know how to tell you this. You gave me $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 already. We're running out of money, and we may not make it to March, and we how could we ever say no? And they were great. Like instantly, they all wrote checks, they refunded the account, and they were fantastic to get us to our gala. So our gala, which is every March, is our biggest fundraiser of the year. And typically, excluding from last year, it raises enough money to carry us for the entire year. It's done in March. This year, I believe it's March 15th. And it's at Villa Lombardi's. It's 600 to 700 people come. It's a huge turnout. But we will raise close to $500,000 after everything's said and done, and that will carry us mostly through the year. That's one of our biggest fundraisers. And then in October, so one of the other things the foundation does is Nassau County, Suffolk, and New York City, predominantly Nassau and Suffolk, they have, the PBAs have widows and children's funds. So for the officers' families who were lost in the line of duty, these funds are available to those families that help keep them close together, get them some extra Christmas gifts during Christmas time, maybe a trip with just the widows where they go out to the wineries or, just kind of keep them all in the family and let them know they're not forgotten about. And about 8 years ago, one of the guys from Nassau County came to me and goes, I said, how could I help your department? And they says, we have no one, the person that used to fund our Widows and Orphans Fund has moved on and they're not doing it anymore. It's not funded anymore. And I was like, well, that has to be funded, right? So every year in October, we've raised money to help supply the Nassau Widows and Children's Fund, and that grew into also now doing Suffolk County's Widows and Children's Fund. So every year we raise money. We give them somewhere between $30,000 and $40,000 a year, each department, and that goes towards the Widows and Children's Fund. So that fundraiser happens, in October, which is, a really, it's a great thing, and it's a great, really to show our support for our local law enforcement.
Great.
Yeah, I mean,
beautiful.
Yeah, that supporting the, law enforcement is such a, key part, right? I mean, people don't realize sometimes how much they do, and it's selfless, their work that they go out there, our first responders, and, we just came off of, 9/11, and, you think about that, right? I mean, as people are running out of the building, fearing for their safety, they're going in. Yeah. And they have families, they have children, they have spouses, mothers, fathers, and they put that all to the side to protect us. Which is,
it's an unbelievable thing, and whenever I talk to these young cops these days, I let them know, because I've been to too many police funerals, right? And I'm like, you don't know if you're going to come home from work this day. You don't know what's going to happen on a routine traffic stop. You don't know what's going to happen on a routine domestic violence call. You don't know what's going to happen if you just show up to thinking it's a small fender bender. You just don't, your day doesn't know that way. And I happen to be engaged to a widow. Her late husband was killed. Paul Tuzzolo was killed in the Bronx in 2016. In having her in my life and her two young boys in my life, I see the tragedy every day. Mm. I see, what they go through every single day, that loss, even though I'm a positive example in the boys' lives, nothing will replace their father, and when you see it every day, it even, it makes it even more passionate that, you have to make sure all these families feel it and see it.
And how, the families, whether they be from a law enforcement family or, a family on Long Island, in a high schooler that unfortunately tragically lost their life, how do they find out about you? How does that usually happen?
So over the years, it was really out of the news, right? It would pop up on the news, tragic car accident, child dies, and we would try to reach out through a school district because we always felt like that was the safest way to get to the family without being some weirdo calling a family when they just lost their child. Mm-hmm. Like if they went to school, let's get in touch with the school, let's contact the superintendent will contact the principal will reach out to the family and say there's an organization. So we really count on the news a lot. And then we decided just a few years ago, let's just talk to the superintendents directly. And so we did this last year in Suffolk County. We went and spoke to all the superintendents directly in one room, and we found out that we were missing a lot. We were missing a lot in the terms of, we only captured the big news stories. The big news stories were always a car accident or something like that. But it wasn't, a second grader that been battling cancer for a few years, or, I couldn't believe last year we had 4 kids under the age 18. Connor Kaysen just turned 18 years old, had cardiac arrest on an ice rink. There was 3 other children that we paid for the funerals last year that were in 2nd grade and 2 and 3rd grade cardiac arrest and passed away. Very bizarre.
Oh my God.
Bizarre circumstances, but we would have never, they didn't make the news. So by reaching out directly to the superintendents and speaking to them directly, you were able to capture all those other families that needed assistance that we didn't otherwise know about. And that's what's really changed the foundation and its trajectory of helping, and we're trying to now do that again in Nassau County because we feel like we're missing something in Nassau still. So we're still trying to contact and work with those superintendents so they would know about us. But the schools is a great way to have that tool in their toolbox, because they have to deal with the loss of a child too, and doing this for so many years and talking to these teachers. She goes, you don't know how odd it is when you go back to school the next day and little Johnny's desk is empty. And all those kids sitting around, they know little Johnny's never coming back. So we work a lot with the schools. We rely on the schools for information when they have something, and they're extremely appreciative. They just gave us an award last week, ironically, because of all our help. But we don't do this for awards. We don't do this for any sort of fanfare at all. It's our calling. It's what we have to do, and that's really what we feel strongly about.
Well, accept the award because you deserve it. And then, the more people who see that you got the award learn about you. Right? So look at it that way. It's a positive effect there. And it's promiseofhopefoundation.org is the website.
Promiseofhopefoundation.org. If you would like to donate, there's a donate button. No donation is too small or too big. One thing is for sure, we have no paid employees. Everything's done on volunteer basis. Every dollar that we get goes directly towards the foundation and making, a huge difference in, changing someone's life in their darkest hour. So if you were so kind, please consider us. I know there's a lot of great causes out there, but it again has been a very challenging year, and we've been very busy with funerals. We just paid for the funeral of late police officer Islam that was killed in New York City. It's been unfortunately another busy year, so please donate.
Wow. So Sal, how did you and Mike get together? Like, when did you guys start working together? And
unfortunately, there was a tragedy in the Longwood School District, and the superintendent reached out to myself, and also I guess superintendent reached out to Mike as well. And we did what we had to do for the family on our end, and then Mike was gracious enough to pay for the cemetery plot for the family, and that's how we began working together.
Yeah, that's and you see obviously a lot, in
Correct.
terms of on your side of the business, on the funeral home side, and having a resource like Mike, I'm sure, is really important to
Correct.
The community out there.
It's as Mike was saying, in the parents' worst time, at least Mike is there and his board and foundation there to give the families a little bit of help just to get them through the funeral and all. And it's a great organization. So if anyone's thinking about donating, please donate. I can't speak highly. I can't speak highly. I can only speak highly about this organization. It's a great organization.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And the also kind of like your transition into the law enforcement support is really it's something that seemed like there was a big need for, and especially stepping up to do that.
It has been overwhelming, the response from law enforcement, and us being able to do that. A lot of them, the police commissioners didn't even know that a line of duty police officer's funeral is not paid for by the department.
Most people would probably be surprised.
You tell somebody that and they almost fall on the floor because they're like, how is that possible? This person just died for their job. But they don't. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of great foundations that will help step in and help support that family. The one thing that's unique about ours is it's immediate. There's no hesitation. There's no taking our time. We hear about it. We react to it. We do it. It's instantaneous. If, God forbid, you lose someone on a Friday, if it's not by Friday night, by Saturday morning, they know we're here. Don't worry about that burden. It's taken care of. Just tell us where you're going to have your services. We handle it from there. And that's the key, is not being a burden to the family. There's not an application process. There's not, submit this here and we'll get back to you.
No red tape.
There's no red tape. And it's ironic, we had to fill out paperwork. Someone said we would love to give you a grant. And, we had to fill out a bunch of paperwork, and they're like, all right, we need to know your processes and your procedures of making sure this money goes to a needy family and it goes to this and goes to that. And, we wrote down our process and procedure it's just called, if you say you need help, we're going to help you. That's our process and procedure. They weren't fond of our process of procedure. We wound up not getting that grant because they wanted to see a little more rigorous. There's no time. There's no time. When you lose a child or a police officer passes away, there's no time to have a process and ask them to fill out paperwork. And could you prove to me you can't afford it? To me, that's no time to start questioning a family. To us, if you call us and you say you need it and we have it, you're getting it.
Yeah,
that's our process.
And also, too, it must be difficult at times. Listen, it's for a lot of people, it's hard to accept, quote unquote, charity.
Yeah.
And, for a family to be going through that and then saying, yes, I need the help is even.
It's very humbling, and that's why the connection with the schools even helps more, because it's usually the superintendent or the principal or the teacher that's speaking directly with the family that kind of has a relationship with the family, and it's a trusted person right there. That's your school. You trust them. So we ask the school, could you please ask the question? If you need the help, we're here to support you, and that's it. And all they need to do is say yes or no. And listen, don't get me wrong. There's people that say, we're fine, thank you, save it for somebody else. Not that often, but it does happen. Or even someone that's just full of pride. I remember speaking to a grandfather, and we offered our services. The grandfather called me up and goes, listen, I could really use the money, but to me, it's a matter of principle that I pay for my granddaughter's funeral. He goes, I can't afford it, but I have to figure this out. She's my granddaughter. And I totally respect that. I wasn't insulted or bothered or even pressured him. I understand his position. Maybe I'd feel the same way if I was in his position. But the reality is, nobody saves for their kid's funeral. I don't know a soul who saves for their kid's funeral. So God forbid this was to happen to you, we will step in and assist.
PromiseOfHopeFoundation.org.
.org.
We're not going to use anything.
Nothing else. My assistant will get very upset with me if I say that wrong. PromiseOfHope.org.
And there's a phone. Is the phone number 631-608-6988? That
is correct.
Okay. So they can call.
They could call if they need assistance. They could email. If you have a situation, you could certainly call the number. It's answered all the time. Or send in an email. It alerts us when there's an email that comes through, and we just decipher if this is a donation or a question email, or if it's a family that actually needs assistance.
That is fantastic. And Sal, I know you have a lot going on with the foundation. You've been doing a lot of work out there. As usual, supporting local community groups and churches and St. Cyril and St. Matthew's and a whole bunch of, organizations that are out there. And big news, right? You are one of the official grand marshals of the Long Island Columbus Day Parade.
Yes, thank you.
So do you have Italian pride for that? Are you ready?
Absolutely.
Very nice.
Absolutely.
Marching, that is fantastic. And that's October 11th. The Long Island Columbus Day Parade is being hosted in the town of Babylon this year. starting at the Deer Park Fire Department and marching up to the Constantino Brumidi Lodge. Sal, so I know you're going to be front and center.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely.
Which is going to be great. And I know you have an upcoming event on October 5th. You have your annual shredding event that's taking place, so talk a little bit about that.
So yeah, we have an annual shredding event. People bring, their papers, things they want to, shred that they don't want to get into the wrong hands. We have an on-site shredding truck, and it'll be on October 5th from 9 to 12. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Please check back again next time. Wonderful event we had here today. And we want to thank everybody for joining us. And we want to thank the Mangano Family Foundation and Promise of Hope Foundation.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station, JVC Broadcasting Management, or its sponsors.